Welcome to the MRI Network. I'm Joe Mullings, and today I'm excited. I am with Gary Miller and Travis Miller, both of the Miller Resource Group. Gary's the president, and Travis is the VP of Operations. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here. Morning, Joe.
Yeah, this is fun.
Awesome. And this is for those who don't know, although Gary's legacy, royalty in the organization, this is from the greater Chicago area. We were just discussing Chicago and some of the scenario going on right there, right now for people coming in and out of the city. So first of all, Gary, how are you? How is your office? How are your people?
I'd say I'm thrilled with where we are culturally, performance-wise. I just looked, we're 92% of last year. June was our best month since last August. Things are looking good. I mean, I think spirits are good. Our virtual meetings are lively, engaging, and I think people are getting the job done. The only thing I'd notice is job orders are fewer and further between, but the ones we're getting are serious job orders. So our ratio of job order to placement is trending down significantly. So the ones we're getting were good. We're just, they're fewer and further between.
And Travis, you were VP of Ops there within the Miller Resource Group. Tell me what that role entails, and then add some color to what Gary mentioned. Why do things seem to be running smoothly at a distance for the Miller Resource Group right now?
Well, touch on that first. I think the things are running smoothly because we're in this together. And it was the best month billings wise we've had since last August. But I think people are probably in the best headspace they've been since this whole thing began. I've noticed a lot less tears, a lot less mental health days, which we're all fine, but people are starting to, I don't know if they're getting used to it, or if, what did I read? That a third of Europeans even enjoy this working from home and social distancing. So maybe some of our people are more productive because there are significantly less distractions than there are in the office. But I think a lot of those distractions are advantageous to the collaboration and camaraderie. So we're paying a little bit of that price with the focus and dedication that our people have. As far as VP of Operations, I think the easiest way to put my job description out there is my job is to make sure that everybody else can do their job, to make sure that everybody has the tools, technology, training, coaching, resources, and support to be the absolute best versions of themselves that they can be.
Travis, did you come up working a desk, or did you come into Miller Resource Group in an ops role?
I came in working a desk and basically held every job imaginable. So when I started, there was very little collaboration. It was a group of recruiters that happened to work in the same office space, but they pretty much all had different digs, different desks. Nobody worked on projects together. There was very little sharing. There was very little camaraderie and collaboration. And I kind of saw a hole that was missing. And so basically created that role to be a central focus for a few people that were kind of working similar food practices. And so I created a role that was to try and tie that group of recruiters in food and beverage together so that there could be significantly more collaboration and camaraderie. And then that eventually grew as we hired new people and started new desks and shed old desks into really, Gary, what was it? Probably 5 or 6 years ago, we pretty much made a conscious decision that we would have two practices. We would have a food and beverage team, and we would have an industrial technology and automation team. And everything would be centered around that. And even now we're starting to tie those groups together. And so my role just kept evolving into doing everything possible to make sure that people can do their job best and we can do the best work possible for our customers and our industries.
Gary, 43 years in the network, and you had shared with me before we went on air that it was your 43rd anniversary on July 5th. Happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you.
Gosh, I would say for those watching this right now, it's probably more than 50% of the people who have been alive. If I had to guess. And so, with that, you've seen this. I'm proud to say I started Search when you used to mail resumes in, and you learned how to sod and get an interview without a resume, and that's when you really knew you had a skill set. 43 years ago, different desk, and there's a finish to this question. You're also one of the super progressive members of the network when it comes to the use of media. You're unique. You've embraced it. Why?
Well, I think there's that saying that says strength is a weakness and vice versa. It's that fear of being behind, fear of missing out, fear of lagging. So I really had no choice but to experiment. And I have a creative side, and excuse me, it's all new. So I love adventure and trying new things out. I think my caliper test says I score in the 98th percentile on creativity and 2% on implementation, which is why we have Travis.
Well, I'll say that I think a big part of it is one of the lessons that's been instilled from me for as long as I can remember is that the only thing that I know for sure is that there is always more to know. And so the sense of creativity and experimentation and the ability and encouragement to fail, so long as there was knowledge and growth from that failure, has always been a message that Gary has relayed, both as a father, as a mentor, as a coach, as a leader, and as a friend.
So, Travis, did you have any influence at all? You've got from Columbia College in Chicago, a degree in radio journalism, and out of the gate, you went to work for morning news anchor WCRX, and then WGN Radio. Did you influence the move of Miller Resource Group into media, or was that something that Gary played around with over the dinner table, and you sort of pushed him along?
It's a little bit of a tough question to answer because the way Gary and I work together is pretty organic. But I mean, I remember being, 12 years old and going into the office and talking with Gary Williams on ConferView. So I mean, Gary's always been open to experimentation with new technologies and new ideas. But would we be as far along without me kind of helping to push that creativity and the ability to take some of his ideas and help implement a number of them? Who knows?
Yeah.
Oh, Travis was the first one to stick a camera in front of his face and talk about a job and talking about.
I remember those. Those are bad.
And he would say, and just click on the button right here to apply for the job. So he was the first one to try that for sure.
Oh yeah, if you're ever bored, I think some of them might still be floating around in the depths of YouTube somewhere. They're pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, you started though, and then obviously you've evolved to a world-class organization in the development of the content. And Gary, by the way, you and I talked about this. Share it with the audience. Where is that ConferView console right now?
It's in my garage. It holds all the pots from the garden. When you have to put them away for the winter, that's where they go.
We had ours in our office here till around 7 or 8 years ago. Same thing. It was such a badass looking console, that black sort of anodized, futuristic looking thing. So yeah, that brings back great memories. And for those of you who don't know what ConferView was, it was sort of Zoom in its time that the organization had put out for all of us. Gary, you're starting new recruiters at a desk level, and you're starting them, I believe you started a few recently, and they're having some success with the use of media at a desk level, not in place of a telephone. And I want to make sure our network understands that. What surprised you most? Because you shared that during a regional meeting with me recently about that, the Rep Council, and they've come out of the gate pretty strong. So could you give some insight to that as an owner who's been around for 43 years?
Well, I think I'll take a step back. I may have told this story before, but my mom passed away a few years ago. She was 97. She was in hospice, still conversing with me. And I said, Mom, what was the biggest change that you remember in your whole lifetime? And she said, hot water. And if somebody asked me that, I would say LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a platform for learning, for advancing. So, I mean, the first thing we did with our new people, even prior to joining, we spent a week on LinkedIn together, sharing a screen. We looked at 1,000 profiles, 100 companies, talked about how they interrelated, talked about titles, talked about functions, talked about industry niches. And it's like a video display. It's almost like a video game for learning about your industry, peppered with inspiration, motivation, news, thought leaders. I mean, you just can't beat it for a concentrated medium for educating somebody quickly. And I've never done that before, where I was so involved with, do you see what I see? This is what I see. Do you see that? And so now they're so accelerated in establishing themselves as recruiters in the space, connecting with industry leaders, connecting with association leaders, people reaching out to them. It's just been and oh yeah, there's phone calls. So
I get myself in trouble a little bit because of my evangelistic communication style in regards to the emerging digital landscape. But it doesn't replace the phone calls. And I think we all need to be more clear in that. It just puts the phone call in a different place in the value prop.
Yeah, we practice scripting. We practice scripts a lot. We're doing a lot more. By the way, we're also doing a lot more role play and practice. I figure your Olympians, they train for years so they could spend 20 seconds in an exercise. So I say that when somebody picks up the phone, that's our Olympic moment. It's our time to shine. So we practice not scripting so much as listening and hearing, which are two different things. But even this morning, we watched Brene Brown, The Power of Vulnerability, and talked about just our script should be, hey, I'm a recruiter in your space. I'm being totally vulnerable here because I have no idea what's going on in your life. But I would like to talk to you about what we do and some candidates we have in mind that could impact your company. But if you start out by saying, look, I'm totally vulnerable here. This could blow up, which is what keeps us off the phone. Mm-hmm. So we study language a lot, philosophy. I mean, it's not just about perfecting the opening script of a phone call.
Yeah. Travis, have you been part of the structure of how new employees, new team members come in?
Yeah, absolutely. We worked really hard on that. And especially now, I mean, I don't want to say this whole working from home strategy has really helped us develop a new process for bringing new people on board. because before, I mean, with everybody in the office, we kind of, we got this. We've been around for 50 years. Gary's a legend in the industry. We've got a number of perennial pace setters. Somebody new comes on board, we'll figure it out and spend some time with them here, spend some time with them there. They'd go through tracks or go through core now. Little role play here, little role play there, maybe. But now, I mean, we developed a very structured onboarding program, and frankly, we spend, I don't want to estimate too much, but I would gather we spend at least twice, if not 3 times as much time with our new people now than we did when we were in the office. It's because we've developed such a clear structure of what we want them to do and when we want them to do it.
Gary and Travis, same question for both of you. As you look at new hires starting today and whatever it is, July 7th, if you had to pick 3 very specific characteristics that you were interviewing for, 1-word characteristics. Gary, let's start with you. The 3 that you look for, give me the 3 and then expand on why.
You'd think I teed that question up because Trav and I both read a book. We read a lot of books together as part of our own development, and we discuss them constantly. The ideal team player: humble, hungry, and smart. Trav will have a tough time topping that, but humility, of course, we're vulnerable, right? There's always some room to grow. Hungry is just this insatiable desire to get better, to not do better, but to be better. And smart is not book smart. Smart is, I think it has to do with empathy, self-awareness, understanding how you're communicating with another person. There's that old Zen saying that says, I know what I said, but I do not know what you received. And so trying to really understand how you're being perceived and, when you're over communicating, when you're telling versus when you're coaching, it's very subtle, but that's what he refers to as smart.
Got it. Travis?
Yeah.
Follow up on that?
Along with that, I do love that book, and the things that I've looked for, kind of in different words, are looking for somebody that has the ability to connect. If somebody's terrified of talking to a stranger, then we're not going to be the right place for them. They need somebody who is genuinely curious about the people that they're talking to. There's kind of this insatiable need in your gut that if you ask one more question and it's the right question, you could unlock the secrets of this person's universe. And if that genuine curiosity for people isn't there, then we can't coach it, we can't teach it. And the third thing is, you got to help enhance our culture. I love the people that I work with to death, and the thought of bringing someone in who doesn't help make them better people, doesn't help make us a better company is terrifying to me and keeps me up at night.
Yeah. So this is fun watching generational exchange here in something that clearly you both have a passion for, and this is very, very rare. I grew up in the MR family. My stepdad, Art Sheehan, and my mom, Pat Sheehan, was a top tenor as well. And I didn't grow up around the kitchen table talking about recruiting. I was an engineer and got into it later. But you guys are involved in a program called Next Gen, which is part of MRI. You clearly are, Travis, take this the right way. You're not just drafting behind the old man who, created a dynasty, just from the thoughtfulness of your answers and your own independent thought. It's impressive. How did that manage itself? Was it always so balanced on the yin and the yang here? Or tell me about some of the worst times you had when this relationship officially started.
Well, I think it was clunky at first. I used to be in Vistage, or it was called Tech, and the CEOs of different industries, different companies would get together once a month. And I can't tell you, I was in that for several years. I can't tell you how many times that the issue was the second generation person, the persona, so-and-so is going to come along. He doesn't know half of what his dad, but he's going to be given the company. And we interview people for a living. And how many times do we hear, so why would you be open to make a change? Well, the owner's son's taken over or a family member, and it's just not the right dynamic. So I would say it was pretty clunky at first, and that people immediately who were very, very senior, CSAMs, senior people, you could tell that the rhetoric was like, oh, I'm going to work for him someday. And I suppose it was natural, but that didn't contribute to it. So I think that was a challenge for both of us, more of a challenge for Travis, and he just did a great job of trying to serve. And ultimately people understood that he was there to help them. Had nothing to do with power or anything like that. It was just, he was there to help. He's the optimum servant leader.
When I came in, it was a very different culture. I talked a little bit about how it was individuals working in the same office space. And a good example of this was in our database, we used to have people in companies called Mike's candidates, Janet's candidates, David's candidates. And it was this ownership of me, mine, get off my lawn. And I just saw that hurting our company and hurting our culture and hurting our ability to do the best work for our customers and for the candidates who chose to work with us. And so asking, and Gary was very supportive of this idea, but when you're working with veterans who have been at it for a very long time and have been successful doing it one way, there was definitely some pushback against making that change.
Ownership of candidates, do you have that anymore? We extinguished that years ago. Do you still have those?
We have 10 pages of rules that we wrote like 10 years ago, and I don't know where they are. Nobody knows what they are. So
yeah, growing pains. That was put together a committee to develop our split policies, rules, and procedures, and spent days and weeks and months putting it together of all the possible scenarios. And we finally got it together. It was brilliant, laminated and everything, and gave it to everybody. And then we spent the next 2 hours going, well, what about in this scenario? And what about in this scenario? And who gets in this scenario? And it's just like, holy, forget it. And we've got such a good group of people now that there's so much collaboration and splitting and sharing. And I mean, we have our hot sheet meeting every Wednesday where everybody kind of goes through what they're working on, what stage it is. And every week somebody said, tell me more about that job. I think I talked to somebody last week. Yeah, I got a guy, I got a gal. I'm going to get him over to you as soon as we're done. And there's just so much collaboration for the good of our customers and getting the right candidates in the right talent at the right companies to help them, the companies achieve their vision
I think we're not perfect though. I mean, one time, I think it was about 3 years ago, somebody messaged somebody on LinkedIn and forgot to write it in PCR. No, that's with Travis. Travis made a good point. PCR is our CRM and LinkedIn is our ATS. And there's a lot of duplication of effort there. It's really hard to manage both. So we just do the best we can. And because again, there's a culture of collaboration, there's no problems really that are not manageable.
And then question for both of you before we head out. Gary, 43 years in the business. Travis, 10 years, but probably in doggy years, probably close to 20, 25, given, growing up with your dad, and he's always been progressive. I mean, I think when I was at the United meeting in October. He was the first one who came up to me at the pool when we were walking outside, and I remembered Gary really well and always looked up to him myself. Recruiting world's changed a lot in the last 4 months, and if you don't come to grips with that, I think you're going to have challenges moving forward. So, Travis first, what is the one thing you would tell office owners and AEs that they should be focused on exclusively in the talent access world moving forward, starting today?
The thing you should be focused on is just doing the best for the people that want to partner with you. I mean, you just gotta, the more people you can talk to, the more people the bigger you can build your community, the more you're going to be able to find and understand the companies that are trying to achieve great things. And you're going to be able to find and understand the people who have the potential, who have the talent to help those companies achieve their vision. And it's a focus on building your network and building your community, so that you can be the advocate for helping your community be the best that it can be.
Powerful and so true. Gary?
Couple things I'd say have a beginner's mind. It's funny what I was thinking about 43 years, reflecting on that, and I was thinking how lucky I am to, my boss immediately sent me to every workshop, every regional meeting, every global conference, every meeting I could attend. I would sit there in the audience, and I think if somebody was up on stage, I think they were godlike, right? So I would hear people say things, and I would just write it all down. I have 300 or 400 notebooks of notes of things that I wrote, from philosophies and scripts and ideas. So, and I would just remember it like, wow, this is so great. But when I first saw about, video and branding, my first thought was, wow, this is so great. Like it's the beginner's mind. So there's that. But then I'd say, it's funny, we had there's some dialogue in the office. Seth Godin had a blog about, and you and I talked briefly about this by the pool, well, everybody has a cell phone. What about when everybody's on video? Well, everybody had a phone book at one time. Everybody had a phone. And we shared it, and our internet researcher, IR manager, Victoria, made a comment. She's not usually very vocal, but she said, as long as there's people that have a problem, and there's people that have the skills and the interest in helping solve that problem, there will always be a business, but everything in between changes constantly. And so we know, and that's why I'm so excited, is that we know that people are going to need the right people around them to achieve their vision. And our job is to help them find those people. And I don't think that's ever going to change. And so, as Simon Sinek pointed out in his book, The Infinite Game, our vision is relevant, and we think it's the right one, and we stick to it, and it should last for a long, long time.
Yeah. It's true. Is what we do is really build companies and careers. How we do it is going to change as tech changes and as business styles change, but what we do won't ever change, and I think that's appropriate to finish up with. Well, Travis, Gary, thanks so much for sharing the information and sharing your experience and journey with us in the network. Anything before we go out I should have asked you that I didn't?
Trav, you first.
Anything you should have asked us that you didn't. How have we put up with each other for so long, and how do we plan on putting up with each other for so much longer?
Do you know how many people wanted me to ask that question? It was too much of a softball to play with, and I didn't want to air the dirty laundry. So, that's an easy one, or for part two. But I wanted to celebrate what you've accomplished first. So
Joe and I, we were talking about that yesterday, and I thought, our dialogue, our one-to-one meetings we have a weekly, we talk about, every now and then we talk about 5 years, we talk about a year, we talk about 6 months, we talk about the quarter, we talk about this week. But we're just always in harmony, so to speak. And I thought how rare that is, but I studied this before and I went back and looked. I counted 20 of the top 50 MRI offices are family, father, son, husband, wife. And there's a history of that. There's something about our business being a personal, professional service business that is very challenging. And anytime you get more than a handful of people, having two people that are on the same wavelength, totally dedicated to the same cause with no politics, it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity and a wonderful experience.
Yeah, that's very true.
Gary and I have a tremendous ability to have different opinions without disagreeing.
Well, that's just a mature, progressive brain, right? You can agree to disagree, and more of the world needs to be able to have dialogue with disagreement and not necessarily hold it against each other. So that's a conversation that's very relevant, especially.
We have a 10-year record going that's yet to be tested. We have never once either of us blamed somebody for something.
Gary, I'm going to give you credit on that for good fathering and good parenting. Travis, you just have to take that. So. All right, listen, gentlemen, I am super thankful for the time and the sharing of what Miller Resource Group has accomplished, and no doubt we'll keep on leading the way for the network. So thanks, gents.
Thanks. I look forward to more sessions with Joe and virtually and or in person someday.
You got it. And Travis, thank you as well.
Excited to see the future with you.
You got it, man. This has been Joe Mullings with the MRI Network. Be well.